coming out. Hopefully, guys that's nicked up, but we're ready to go. So, man, we're looking forward to this. Really looking forward to it. It's new to some guys, all right, but it's a walk in the park for other guys that's been there. So, our young guys are leaning on that, leaning on the older guys that's been there. And again, like I said, we're looking forward to it.
AG, before we hit the Rams and focus on that, just you have an opportunities coming up. 4 teams have requested to talk to you.
Yeah.
Just wondering how that feels, I guess, to get that kind of acknowledgement from the vacancies that are there, and how you plan on approaching it starting next week.
Well, listen, I'm flattered by the interview request. I really am. And man, I do not want it to sound like coach speak, but I try to focus on the main thing for this team, for this organization, because this is a big deal for us. And to be able to go out there and beat this team, which is a good team, is huge. So I will be honest. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I'm really, really focused on like how we're gonna play defensively against this team, and then as a whole, right, as an overall team, how do we make sure we complement each other and go out there and try to win this game? Because we're in the tournament, and we all know it. It doesn't matter. You just get in the tournament. We're at where we're at. You know, I've always learned that on the Bill Parcells. Just get in the freaking tournament, and anything can happen after that. And we're in it, and we're ready to go.
Will you take all those interviews?
Say it again.
Will you take all 4 of those?
Will I take them all? I mean, yeah.
I got one more, just kind of related to that, but Dan's going to have his own coaching tree, if you will, coming up, and maybe it's an extension of Bill or Sean or whatever. But can you just, what's the biggest thing you've learned about being a head coach just from being around him?
The number one thing I think is important is, man, just the collaboration with the GM and the owner, and making sure that vision, that collective vision, is the same. Because once that's intact, and you keep, all 3 of you guys are saying, old women are saying the same thing, that feeds down to the staff, then feeds down to the players, and man, they just hear the same vision over and over again. And you talk about culture. Culture is about people, and you bring the right people in, you're gonna have the right culture.
In terms of the Rams, they use a lot of that at the snap motion, turbo motion, whatever it's called. And they use it with purpose, whether it's getting the guy involved in the run blocking, or handing it off to their receivers, or just getting them space. What are the challenges for a defense, particularly one as yours, that's still young, gaining experience, kind of finding their own way? What are the challenges of those turbo motion looks?
The communication first and foremost, and exactly how do you want to handle those turbos. And everybody handle them different. And we actually handle those by week because we want to make sure we put ourselves in the best position on how to handle those. But what they do a really good job of, they use that to protect the edge of the defense for the most part. So any type of edge pressure either slows you down, or they're going to end up blocking you for the most part. So we have to be smart in exactly how we operate and how we attack this team. And also they condense you to get you out, to get out on the perimeter also. So once they condense you, then they condense, then you condense, and then they just create space in the passing game for deep overs and in the run game for any type of toss play. So we have to understand that first and foremost, and understand how we're going to attack that and be good and be effective in what we do.
So much talk about they're talented wide receivers, and they're very good, but what does Kyron Williams bring to that offense, and the ability to run the football and then have play action off that? That seems like a real strength of theirs.
Well, for him himself, I've actually showed a couple of clips to our defense. Even though he's a guy that's, some people say smaller stature, he's not just a small guy. He does a really good job of breaking tackles. That's why we have to be the best tackling team throughout this playoffs. Because of that, every team that you're playing is a team that does a really good job of breaking tackles. But this team in particular, with the receivers and with the running back, that we got to do a good job of. So he's tough. He's powerful. He has this stiff arm that's effective, and we got to understand that. So we have to make sure that we wrap up and have population to the ball with this player.
When Puka was blown up to start the year, there was a lot of talk how sustainable it would be with Cooper back in the lineup. Well, he certainly sustained that production. I'm just like, how's that offense evolved with both of those pretty unique wide receivers?
Well, they have 2 good players. And when you're a good player, you don't really see the drop-off as much. So he's here to stay, and we have to deal with him, which we will. right, with all those guys, and that's just what it is. Listen, we played against good players throughout this season. There's no different than these guys, so we're going to attack them the way we attack them, and we'll let the chips fall where they may.
You incorporated Gardner Johnson back in, but I guess I looked at, I hope I'm right, 51 snaps you gave him last week. And was that just bringing him in, or is that like the normal workload you're going to try to keep?
But probably a lot of snaps for him, but he was ready to play. And I think between all three of our safeties, all averaged around that 47 plays, which is, I think, is a really good deal to have good players in the game. So, listen, we have wrinkles for all those guys, and you'll see how it all plays out.
Coach, how much have you grown over these last couple of years to kind of prepare you for, this stage of being with this team this time? We saw a survey released a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you saw the NFLPA. They voted you the top defensive coordinator. Just your style, your coaching style. How much have you grown over these last 2 seasons?
Listen, I feel like I grow every year in different aspects of just the NFL in general. Number one, as a play caller. Number two, of understanding the big picture from not just a coordinator perspective, but from a head coach. And Dan does a really good job of filling me in, allowing me to have my thoughts to him on like different situations that have happened, how would I handle it. So just hats off to him, and it's a reason why that you have a coaching staff like we do. But even our younger guys are ascending because of the way that he operates, and a lot of that comes from how Coach Payton used to handle us back in New Orleans. So, man, there's a lot of different ways that I've grown, and it's too much to actually sit here and talk about. But understanding how to collaborate with your GM, understanding how to speak with your owner, and more or less understand how to relate with your players, which is not an issue for me at all, because I'm just going to be myself. And I think that's one thing that the players see is, listen, I'm no fake. And the thing that players do, they can point out a fake, and there's nothing fake about me.
What do you have to see from James Houston during the practice week to feel confident that he can help you guys on Sunday?
Practice. That's it. Go out and practice, see how effective you can be. And if you're effective, then we'll put you in there and let you play.
You mentioned tackling, that you guys have to be the best tackling team in the playoffs. It hasn't really been an issue for you guys this year, but just how do you feel about the way that you've handled that aspect of it?
Listen, I think we've been a pretty good tackling team for the most part. But when you see teams like when you see players like Puka, you see players like Williams, man, we just have to emphasize that and let it be known. Because sometimes when you don't really just think about it for the most part, because you're pretty good at it, sometimes it can slip away. All right, so I want to make sure that's emphasized and show this clips. Listen, look at these guys now. Just because he's a smaller stature guy, man, he has a strong lower body. Same thing with Puka, a strong lower body. And everybody that I talk to, that's the number one thing that they say is, man, don't be surprised by the way these guys break tackles, and it shows up on tape.
I want to go back to Tim's question about Williams. I know he mentioned the play action element of it. He gets to the line of scrimmage in a hurry, very little wasted motion.
Yeah.
And you guys are very good against the run because of how committed your linebackers are to it.
Yeah.
They do very well against zone coverage. Matthew sees the field really well in that regard. So how important are your linebackers, I guess, in their ability to diagnose quickly and be in the right positions? How important is that to your success?
Well, that's one thing that we do. We talk about all the time as far as, man, how do they offensive line block? Are they showing us drop back? Are they showing us play action? And they do a good job. Because I'll tell you what, those two guards they have, I mean, they're powerful men, and they do come off the ball. So you're right. We have to be really good at being able to diagnose that, get back into our zones, and be able to read the quarterback and play. But listen, we're always going to mix up our coverages. We're not just always going to be in zone coverage. We have man concepts that we utilize quite a bit. And we're going to do everything we can to try to affect this quarterback.
We know Stafford pretty well here. Obviously, just your thoughts on how he's evolved, as a quarterback the last
He's a
couple
good
of
player.
years.
That's it. And we got good players, too. So good player against good player. Let's go.
Yeah, Aaron, sometimes you see it takes young receivers a little bit of time to acclimate to this league.
Yeah.
But what's allowed Nakua to have such success his rookie year?
You got to go ask their staff. I mean, he'll tell you. The thing I do, though, he's been breaking tackles. He's been catching a lot of balls, and the quarterback trusts him. So that's all we need to know. He's a guy that we have to target, and we will target that player.
What have you seen from Jack Campbell the last month or so? I think Dan said the other day this Vikings game was the best he's played.
The same thing I've been telling you guys every week about this player. He's a damn good player. It's the reason why we drafted him. And he's going to be a good player for us for a long time.
That's one last thing I just forgot. Romeo Okwara's he's played pretty well the last couple
Yes,
of
he
weeks after
has.
the quarterback. Just your thoughts on why? I mean, is it finally he's over that injury, the opportunity? What is it?
You know, I think that's a good point. I think it has a lot to do with it. I think he's feeling much better from the injury. Listen, everybody's different, and they talk about that Achilles injury. Sometimes it take you a year, maybe a year and a half to really get over that and get moving. And I'll tell you what, he's helping us out a lot. And you see his rep count really go up, and then putting him in package to where he can be free, try to go one-on-one and get to the quarterback. So we'll continue to do that. Man, I'm happy for that player. I really am, because he's starting to see himself as a guy that can affect the game, and we're going to put him in position to do that.